Hey y'all, in this episode, I'm going to be breaking down several intermittent fasting protocols so you can find the one that's right to support your weight loss goals. I'll also be sharing how you could do extended fasting or longer fast in order to accelerate your weight loss. Now, couple quick disclaimers. If you need to see your medical provider in order to do a weight loss routine, fasting, please do so. I'm not a physician or clinician of any kind. Also, trigger warning. If you have a history of eating disorders, this may not be the episode for you because I am going to be talking about weight loss. Now, here is the good thing about this episode: you can listen on the go. This is going to be a podcast type of episode, so you can catch all this good information I'm about to give you on the go, whether you're in the car or you're doing chores around the house. So, let's go ahead and get into it. Now, intermittent fasting began to get really popular about 10 years ago. I know that's when, for the first time, I heard of it and I started trying it with the 16-hour fasting window and the 8-hour eating window, also known as 16-8. So try 16-8, and it's been around for quite a while now. So there's so much information out there on intermittent fasting. And I thought, as I have really talked about my experience with alternate day fasting, doing ADF, that I wouldn't cover all of the fasting routines because it's just a lot out there. But what I found is, every week I am getting in a conversation with somebody and really breaking down, like, here's what fasting is, here's the various protocols. So I felt like, hey, let me just share it all so this can be a refresher for some people who may have had some type of introduction to it. This can also be maybe the first time you're hearing this information. And what I do feel like this is an opportunity to do is give you a lot of practical information about how you can adapt intermittent fasting, or IF, into your routine, into your life. Now, there are a lot of people who have a science background, who have a medical background, who talk about intermittent fasting, and they have some valuable information. I'm going to talk about that a little later in the video. But what I don't get a lot of is people breaking it down in a practical way about how can I incorporate this into my life. Now, as a coach, that is what I'm good at. That is the value that it offers, always figuring out how is this going to work and how is this applicable for the women that I work with. And so that is how I'm going to be sharing this information, is from that vantage point. And then I'll also, like I say, later in the episode, talk a little bit about, other people that you might want to listen to. Like, I was just listening to Dr. Fung this morning, and he was talking about women in perimenopause and menopausal, how to do fasting incorporated along with their cycle. But again, Dr. Fung, he really got into a lot of the sciencey part of it, the technical part of it, which I think can turn some people off, especially if they're new to it. Now, with that being said, like I said, I'm going to be providing a lot of practical information. Now, a lot of people come to fasting as a way to manage blood sugar and to really manage that blood sugar roller coaster. So, whether it is because they have some metabolic issues, could be diabetes, or just because maybe insulin resistance, or a lot of people come to it in their 30s or 40s when they've tried a lot of, other diets, try things have done in the past. However, those things are no longer working, and if that is you, this information is for you. A lot of the things they have done before, it isn't working. So fasting, it is a tool. It is a tool, like, adapting different ways of eating is a tool. So is a tool that does help to manage that blood sugar roller coaster, helps so you don't always have insulin spikes. So just keep that in mind. Now, fasting is time-based eating. It is an eating pattern. And so it doesn't tell you what to eat, but because of its connection and how it relates to blood sugar, it does work hand in hand with low carb or keto. Now, you may not be into that, and I get it. I get it if you're not into doing low carb. But I would encourage you, if you're going to try out intermittent fasting, to start eating more whole foods, as a way to eat better foods that will not put you on that blood sugar roller coaster. So we got that part out the way. Again, that intermittent fasting is not about telling you what to eat. And there are people who do it who do not subscribe to any type of diet routine. So just keep that in mind. So it is again, it is a pattern of eating. So let's really get into the crux, the core, and define what does that mean when I say it's a pattern of eating or time-based eating. So with intermittent fasting, you're going to have an eating window. That is when you have your meals. That is when you have your calories. That you have a eating window. So that's it. Eat your all your meals, all your calories in that eating window. And then you have what is known as your fasting window. That is when you are abstaining from eating. That is when you are not having calories. You are not starving. This is a choice. And it's not about you not having food, it's about you not partaking or eating in your eating in that fasting window, because again, this is something you might be doing for weight loss or for health. So I hope that really helps to define exactly what intermittent fasting is, which is you're going to have an eating window. That's when you're consuming your calories. You're going to have a fasting window. That is when you won't be taking in calories. I think I've covered that part pretty well. All right, so let's talk about what you are going to have in your fasting window. Water, coffee, tea. Water, coffee, tea, and I don't encourage. I encourage what I would say cleaner fasting, so not putting in any sweeteners or any type of creams in your coffee or tea. Now, there is a term that is called dirty fasting, which is some people might put a little cream in their coffee, or they might have some sweetener, because for some people that will not possibly, it won't really break their fast. So it is something you consider, if you can consider, if you really do need it, especially when you're starting out. Also, another way of possibly doing dirty fasting is some people might do a diet drink because it doesn't have calories, or doing broth or bone broth. Again, dirty fasting. I'm I tell you that I encourage clean fasting, so having only water, coffee, tea during your fasting window. All right, so we got it. Number one, we've defined what fasting is. Intermittent fasting is. You got an eating window. You got a fasting window. You know what you have during your fasting window is water, coffee, tea. And then if you're doing longer fasts, you do incorporate some electrolytes. During your eating window, you have food. You have food like you would normally have. All right, so let's now really dig into the type of fasting routines. And so fasting is about building your fasting muscle. I want you to think about this like if you were going to the gym. You're not going to the gym and starting off with the heaviest weights, right? You want to build yourself up incrementally. So you might go in and you start with a lighter weight, you increase by 5 pounds, 3 pounds, 5 pounds, 10 pounds every couple of weeks. Same thing with fasting. You want to start off with a protocol that is going to be a little bit lighter, not as long in terms of your fasting window. So a good place and a good approach to that is doing 16 hours of fasting, 8 hours of eating. So that is called 16-8. That's where a lot of people start. Now, as far as that incremental approach of adding more fasting time, you can do that as you get used to one protocol. That is called building your fasting muscle. So if you want to get into longer fasts that can accelerate your weight loss, master and be consistent with the shorter fast. So let's start off again with 16-8. This is for you if you are new to fasting. If you have, maybe you did fasting several years ago and you're just getting back into it. If you are hesitant and just very kind of apprehensive about fasting and you really need to build your confidence around it because again, you've never tried any fasting, this is this approach would be for you. Again, it's called 16-8. That is what it is commonly referred to. Now, for the purpose of this video, I am going to use a little bit of shorthand here because I'm going to be saying a lot of numbers, and it's just going to be helpful for me and hopefully helpful for you too as I use a little bit of shorthand. So now I'm going to say you a part of the 8 Club. 8 Club is where you are starting off at if you are new to fasting. So the first thing I want you to do with each of these fasting routines is identify what's going to be the best time for you to eat. So if you in the 8 Club, you could eat 8 hours. You're going to have an 8-hour eating window. You can do from 12 to 8. You could do from 11 to 7. You can do from 10 to 6. You want to base this on your lifestyle, what is going to be easiest to fit in. And that is why I love fasting, because it's not about, so I come from that diet culture where it is a very prescriptive diet and you fit it in to your life no matter what, no matter how difficult it is, and it's just not sustainable, right? But what fasting is about, you identifying the right fasting protocol for you is the one that you can more easily adapt into your life, the way that your life just naturally operates. So again, let's say you're starting off in the uh, 8 hour club or the club 8, and so now what you want to do is identify when you're going to eat. So let's give for an example. Say you're going to start eating at noon. You're going to close your eating window at 8 p.m. I would suggest you have 2 meals and one snack. So you would have a meal around noon because that's when your eating window opens. You have a meal around noon, midday, having a snack. When you first start out, it might even be a heavier snack. Midday, maybe between 2 and 4, and then around 7, you're going to eat your last meal because again, you close that eating window. You don't eat after 8 because yes, you're not eating after 8 because you are doing an 8-hour eating window, 16-hour fast. So I think that pretty well covers how what how 16-8 works. Now we move on. Let's say you're good with 16-8, you've mastered that, you've been doing a couple of weeks. Now you want, and some people might say that's a sweet spot for me. I see results. I'm staying there. Cool. For people who want to go a little bit further, now what you would get into is doing a 18-6. 18 hours of fasting, 6 hours of eating. So you in a 6 club. You in it. So people who are in a 6 club, you're going to eat for 6 hours. Again, you want to identify the best 6 hours for you, like when it's going to align with where you have a little bit at a time to fit in your meals. So whether that be 12, maybe it's 12 to 6. Maybe you work a 9 to 5 and you say, I want to get in my meals at work. So because I know after work I'm super busy. So maybe you choose to eat your meals from not 12 to so you're not doing 12 to 6. You want to finish by 5, so you're going to do 11 to 5 as a choice. You may want to do 2 to 6, 3 to 9. You see where I'm going with this. You make the choice, and I want you to think about it like this. If I know I work a 9 to 5 and I want to eat with my family, but I also got errands to run and, got to take the kiddos to practice or pick them up, well, I probably want to go ahead and do something like doing an eating window of starting at 2, and then I can finish up by 8. That way, at 2 o'clock, I'm at work, I eat my first meal, and then around 7:30, I'm with my family. I go ahead and eat dinner. And so what I'm suggesting here is you're going to do a 6-hour eating window. Is that you eat 2 meals. And so this is a good point to really talk about the snacking. I Now when you first start out, you might have some snacks. I'm suggesting the number of meals for each eating window, and I would suggest you do not or limit snacking if you can, because a part of you doing this time restricted eating is you don't want to continue to trigger your blood sugar and be on that blood sugar roller coaster. You don't want to continue to spike your insulin. So the way that you do that is when you have a meal, you have a meal, and then you're done. Once that meal is done, you're done. You don't continue to graze, you don't continue to snack. So there you have that piece. We're trying to limit and eliminate snacking if we can. All right. So now you're part of the 6 hour club, and you've mastered it. You can do a little bit more. You've built your fasting muscle, or maybe you say this is the sweet spot for me. I am seeing results, and I tell you, once you get into doing 18-hour fast, you this is when you are this these are the more powerful fasts. Now, if you want to move on and bump up from there, you do 20-hour fast, 4 hour eating window, also known as, or I've heard referred to as, the warrior diet. And I think this is an exceptionally a sweet spot for a lot of women who are getting into our, I'm past the 30s, but I started trying this in the 30s and getting it into your 40s. And I tell you, when I was doing 16/8, when I started out and I was doing 16/8, what I found was I was eating very clean. I was eating a vegan plant-based diet, no, not vegan junk food diet. I was doing lots of greens, lots of vegetables, berries, not a whole lot of sweet fruit, and I still wasn't seeing results. And what I end up doing was, that's when I started doing a lot of research on the different fasting protocols. So that's why I'm getting back to, hey, if you want to see some accelerated results, I think the doing 20 hours of fasting, if you can, and 4 hour eating window is a really good spot for a lot of women. One is it is sustainable. It does allow you to still participate in life with family and friends. And you can, because you have 4 hours, you can really vary up what you're eating and get the nutrients that you need. I've done, as you probably can tell, because of my affinity to this eating, to this protocol, I've done it quite a few times. And because right now I'm doing ADF, but this is something I would even go back to. So with this, you simply have a 4 hour eating window. When I do the 20 hour fasting, 4 hour eating window, a lot of times I'll usually do a heavy snack and then a full meal. Sometimes if I'm really hungry, I'll do 2 meals. So the when I say heavy snack, and then a meal, let me give you an example of what that means. Heavy snack would be, for me, some a tuna salad. So a tuna salad made with mayo, relish, onions. Could add an egg in there. It's having a couple cheese sticks, and then having some cucumbers that I dip in the tuna salad. So that would be like a heavy snack that I would break my fast with. And then for my meal, I may have some baked chicken thighs, some green beans, a nice salad, you know, and that would be my meal. And then if I'm really, doing it up, I might have some cashews or some type of nuts and berries for my dessert. So because you do want to make sure you're getting in your nutrients, you do want to make sure that you are having the calories that you need when you're doing these fasting routines. So again, 20 hour fast, I think a really, really good spot where you can be consistent with it. You can see really, really good results. Now, a couple of the things around timing, I found would work for me when doing the 20-hour fast. I prefer to do like eating like between 3 and 7. I could eat or like I said, break my fast at work and then have dinner at home, or 4 and 8, or eating between 4 and 8. But again, it's up to you. You adapt your eating window whenever is going to be best for you. So moving on, because we got a few more to cover. Um, is if you're really good with that, then you could maybe move on to 1 meal a day. This is where a lot of people have success, is doing 1 meal a day, and people usually do 1 meal a day during a 1 hour eating window. So that means they're fasting 23 hours out of the day. Some people do it in a 2 hour eating window, which means they may fast around 22 hours, and they have a 2 hour eating window. I think when you're doing OMAD, just keep in mind it's going to be important to be thoughtful and plan out your meals, because you only get one shot at it. You get one shot a day for a meal, and so you want to pretty make sure that you are being thoughtful about the nutrition you're having in that eating window. I find OMAD is not the best routine for me. I've tried it several times. I would even try it again because a lot of people have success on it, but it's a challenge for me to eat a lot in the span of an hour. Even when I do it for 2 hours is a little bit better, but still somewhat of a challenge for me. So just think about that. And so now we've gotten to a point. I'm going to talk about a couple of more. I'm going to talk about extended and longer fasts, but I do want to say I've covered the core, the most popular, the ones that you're probably going to do if you actually are going to get into ADF. These are the routines that most people are going to do. Most people won't go beyond that, and that's great because most people will see results with the routines that I have just shared. What I want to offer you now is that once you really have mastered one of these routines and you know which one is a sweet spot for you, you can go ahead and go in between them. You can say, like, hey, I usually do a 20-hour eating window, but now I want to adjust and have a 20 hour. I usually do a 20-hour fasting window, 4 hour eating window. I usually do 20 hour fasting, 4 hour eating. Now I want to go and I want a fuller day of eating. And right now I'm doing 16 8 8 8, or today I'm going to do 18 6. So you can go in between them. I see a lot of people who've had success that, again, they do find consistency with one. Once they really have mastered one or two of these protocols, and they will go in between based on what makes sense for their life, their day, and what makes sense for what their goals are. So let's move on. So now I'm going to move on to what is called 5-2. So after I told you I was not having much success with 16-8, and then I started doing research on YouTube and came across a protocol called 5-2, and I believe it was Dr. Michael Mosley. He had a documentary. I know he still has some interviews on YouTube, so I'll make sure I link those in the description. And so, what 5-2 is, you eat normally 5 days a week, 2 days a week, you fast. And it is also pretty flexible because in those 2 days a week that you're fasting, you can use what is called a crutch, and you can eat up to 500 calories. They don't tell you what calories it is, just make sure you track it, and you can have up to 500 calories on those 2 days that you're fasting. Now, if you want to do a clean fast, like I have discussed, you wouldn't have those 500 calories. But I want you to keep that in mind because that's really important, because that will make it more approachable for people who, if you're just getting into this. And that's how I actually started to get into doing longer fast. And is by doing a version of 5-2, a version of 5-2 called Eat Stop Eat, which was where I fasted, fasted 24 hours, and then at the 24-hour mark I would eat the 500 calories. So that's also 5-2. Eat Stop Eat, very similar, but with Eat Stop Eat, 2 days a week, maybe three, you fast 24 hours, you eat 500 calories around that at that 24-hour mark, and then that's your fast day. So that's how you can also do a crutch when you're doing ADF, is in the way that I've just explained to you. with doing the eat, stop, eat, or the 5-2 is you incorporate that crutch is that 500 calories that you would have on what was your fast day, or some people call it down day. Um, so your up day would be when you're eating normally. Your down day would be when you are doing your fasting with a crutch. Another way I want to talk about doing a crutch that worked for me this last time I got back in the ADF. I was transitioning from doing the 20-hour fast, 4-hour eating window, and I needed to build my confidence back up in doing ADF. And so the way that I did that is I didn't want to eat because I feel like eating would trigger my appetite and make me hungrier. So what I did was I had protein shakes. I would have two protein shakes, and then I would have some bone broth. And that did not even get up to 500 calories, but what it did was it took the edge off, and I was still able to see results with doing that crutch. So that's another thing, that's something else for you can to consider. So I have gone through all of the fasting protocols. I mean, there are others, and you can kind of even play around with what I've shared with you, but you've got the basics if you got this. You've got the basics. You would be prepared to do ADF by if you want to build up your fasting muscle by doing the working through the various protocols, or you can do the crutch that I just talked about. Even doing ADF, whether you want to do 3 days of fasting a week or you want to do true alternate day fasting and do it with a crutch until maybe you can do without the crutch. Maybe you say I want to do ADF, but I will always do it with that 500 calorie crutch or with adding in a protein shakes and brown broth. It will be up to you, but that I just wanted to give you an option of how you can make it a bit more approachable for you. So as I conclude, here's what I also want to share with you is that I told you I was giving you the practical, how you gonna implement this into your life. There are people, and I want you to check out other resources on alternate day, or not just alternate day fasting, but intermittent fasting. Because what I found in coming to fasting is that I have researched. I have gone through so many people, and a lot of them did not resonate with me, but a few really did. And I want you to find other people who they are sharing this information in a way that is digestible for you, that helps you to really understand it. I hope that I did. I hope that I've given you some value, but I also want you to find others that give you value because I have found different nuggets and bits and pieces from several people that really helped me in this lifestyle, in this doing intermittent fasting. So I want you to be able to do the same. Is take a few nuggets. So take what's going to work for you, and then leave what won't work for you. And that might take you going to various sources. A couple of people that really resonate with me is Reagan Ramos. I just, her as a woman, her experience doing fasting, she just offers a lot of value. And I'll link some information for Megan Ramos. Dr. Berg, he does talk about fasting, but he also really gets into keto and eating a good whole food diet with doing keto. Dr. Fung, I've talked about him, and he and Megan they have an association, so they kind of go hand in hand. But even though I may listen to a Dr. Fung video here and there, I really end up reverting back to Megan. So you guys, I have shared a lot of information. I wanted to do this episode, and I wanted to be a little shorter, but it's not. But I really wanted it to take. I really taken the appropriate time, I think, to break the information down so that you can understand it. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. Comment on any part of this that you might need a little bit of clarification on, and maybe I'll try to do another video with all of the questions that may come up. If there's other things that you want me to cover, let me know. And then I also want you to comment. Tell me what what IF protocol have you done, or the one that I've talked about from this episode that you may try. I really want to hear from you guys. And so, you know, you've made it this far. I think it's just appropriate that we get to know each other. My name is Nikki Harper. I am a wellness coach. I focus on working with women, but what is even more important to me is really helping women to create the life that they want. So if you need any resources, I have resources linked below. I got a free guide. I do have a Facebook group if you want some support and you want to ask some questions. I check in there pretty much every day and to provide support and not necessarily coaching, but some support. And I will answer questions. And then also, if you're ready, if you're really ready, you can schedule a free call with me. It's an assessment call. I'll tell you, I'll hear about what your journey is, figuring out like what could work for you, and if we could be right to work together. So those are some resources also going to be linked in this video. And with that, that is it. I don't have any more, but here's something I do want you to remember. It's not about being nice, it's about being kind. And you got to be kind to yourself before you're kind to anyone else.